Hi, this is Anna Crowe with the Get Real podcast, where CEOs, CMOs, and communications experts share their real advice. It's 6 questions under 9 minutes because we get to it real fast. So let's get to it. I'm excited for today's guest. Could you please tell us who you are and what you do?
Hi, I'm Dexter Shurney. I'm a physician, and I spent most of my career, actually I'm a physician and a business person. So I spent most of my career in corporate medicine with corporations such as Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, Amgen, Cummins Diesel, working on health policy and benefit design. I'm currently the Chief Medical Officer for Zapongo, based out of San Francisco, and we are a telenutrition company, really in the digital health space. And I also happen to be the president for the American College of Lifestyle Medicine.
Wonderful. Well, such a great industry to be in general, but especially nowadays. Digital health seems to be such an incredible space and really doing some wonders. What would you say is the best thing about being a leader in your industry?
Well, I think you just touched on it. It's such an exciting field right now. For example, since COVID-19, we've seen health visits increase by about 1,000%. And being at the head of the spear, this industry is just on fire. People not wanting to go, into the office for their checkups or for their counseling. And so telehealth has just really taken off. And the other thing too, the other part that I really play a big role in is telenutrition. And so the nutritional aspect of how you keep yourself healthy during COVID is also important. People want to know how to eat better, right? How to remain healthy.
Absolutely.
So it's an exciting place to be right now.
So cool. And you're right. Even just consumer buying and food preferences have changed in the last few months. How people are obtaining food, how are they cooking, who's home, so many different things, and what are they putting in their bodies. So very cool to be in that space, I'm sure. You touched on something, digital connections, right? So we're talking to customers different. You're talking to patients differently. I hear from other executives that creating authentic connections can be challenging when there's a lot of noise and these types of changes. What's your take on that?
Well, I think any good connection with an individual is about relationships and it's about emotions. And so you have to make those connections before you have these other larger kinds of connections. And, it may sound strange coming from that works in, the digital world, but I found sometimes old school actually works better. And just picking up the telephone and having, a conversation. I think when people are in front of the camera with all the Zoom meetings, it's sometimes if they feel like they have to put on their best face and they can't really get down to how they really feel and connect with those emotions. And sometimes when they're not on that and we can just pick up the telephone, I have found at least that sometimes I'm able to connect with people better that way.
Yeah, that's a great point. Do you have any other real advice for other leaders? Is there anything else that you think is really important?
Well, I think it goes without saying that you need to be sincere when you try to reach out. You need to know your audience, right? But people can detect a fraud a mile away. And so you need to be sincere. And what I mean by that is that there needs to be consistency with what you say and what you do and the policies that you roll out as a leader. So that's what I really mean by consistency, not necessarily, what comes out of your mouth every time, but you also need to be consistent with your body language, right? So that you're really getting the feedback, and you need to be able to listen so that you understand that they're actually understanding what you're trying to communicate back to them. Those are just some fundamental keys, but unfortunately, a lot of us miss it.
No, absolutely. And it's great reminders, right? We don't think about these things all the time. So I love that you brought that to the surface and also had some really unique perspective on it. Are there any other successful executives such as yourself that you would like to get a shout out to or believe should be on this podcast?
There are 2 that I would love to do that for. Thank you for asking. One is Tom Lineberger, who is the CEO of Cummins Diesel, one of the companies that I mentioned. And he really demonstrates, he walks the talk. He really demonstrates that authenticity. He cares about what's going on in the organization. And it really goes back to, his staff and to his employees. And so he's a very, he's come up from the ground. He's worked his way up through the organization. He knows a lot of people, but he's right there on the front lines. He'll roll up his sleeves. And even though he's the CEO and this is a multi-billion-dollar global company, he really knows how to connect with his employees. So that's one that I think that, and I think he'd be open to having this conversation with you. The other is Ben Liedl, who is the CEO of Blue Zones. And so what they're doing is they're transforming communities into how to live healthy and making, the easy choice or the right choice, the easy choice. And so he would be another person that I would recommend.
They sound fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for those recommendations. Very cool. Well, our last question is more of a fun one. It's always interesting to get someone's perspective on life. And a lot of that stems from where we got started. So could you tell us about your first job?
Well, it's not that exciting, but it is unusual. My first job, I was picking garlic.
Wow, it is unusual.
It's very unusual. I grew up in Northern California, not far from where I live now. I live in Southern Oregon now, but I grew up in Northern California in a rural area. And one of the best jobs in the summer was picking garlic. And so a lot of us did it, and we really competed to do that. But it really demonstrated how hard work, the payoff of hard work. The other thing it did is it demonstrated community. A lot of the workers that I was working with were migrant families, and that I was the rookie, my first season doing that, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I wasn't making any money, and they would actually show me and help me so that I could, pick up my pace and actually earn money. And these were people that didn't even know me, they didn't even speak English that well, but they were willing to help me, this guy from town, right? And it was it really impressed me about how groups can come together and help each other. And it really taught me a lot about what hard work is all about.
That's awesome. Great experience. And to your point, touched on so many different layers that I'm sure helped propel your career further into where you are today. So thank you for sharing that. All right. Well, really excited to have you on. Could you tell us how people can get a hold of you or learn more about the company?
Yes. So you can get a hold of me. I'm just Dexter.Shurney at Zapongo.com. And then actually we're changing and we're rebranding the name. So you want to go to FoodSmart, FoodSmart.com. So if you go to FoodSmart.com, you'll be able to find out more about the company.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. This is Anna Crowe with the Get Real podcast. For more insights, visit us at crowepr.com. Thanks so much.
Thank you.